Welcome to Music in Progress, your window into the art of composing music. I'm your host, Michael Cook, a Bay Area composer and multi-instrumentalist. We'll delve into the depths of my creative processes that shape the music I make. Whether you're a fellow musician, an enthusiast, or simply curious about the magic behind the melodies, you'll find valuable insights, practical tips, and innovative techniques to inspire your own musical journey.
Forging a fearless solo violin piece through collaboration. Sometimes progress does not arrive as one dramatic breakthrough, but as a chain of smaller decisions that suddenly begin to add up. Over the past few weeks, even while balancing the June SFCCO concert, coordinating 6 composers, a multitude of performers, conductors, promotion, rehearsal needs, and my own practicing, I completed the layout for my solo clarinet circle music piece, created a template for the rest of the collection, and brought the first version of the solo violin piece into focus. Building a template for the collection. One of the practical challenges with this solo circle music collection is making sure each score feels like part of the same family. The pieces may use different instruments, techniques, and sound worlds, but they still need a shared visual language. Finishing the clarinet layout helped me solve some of those issues. It also gave me a template that I can now carry forward into the other pieces. That may not sound as exciting as composing new material, but it is an important part of turning these works from sketches and drafts into publishable scores. Starting with the performer, the violin piece began with a conversation. Before writing much of the music, I asked the violinist what solo violin works he loved, what techniques he enjoyed playing, and what kinds of things he felt especially good at. I also asked about extended techniques, since this entire series makes use of them in different ways. His response was extremely helpful. He told me that one thing he hoped to avoid was col legno, or anything that involved hitting or striking the bow or instrument. On the other hand, he loved chords and double stops, left-hand pizzicato while bowing, and false harmonics. He also sent me several favorite solo violin works. Eugene Izet's 6 solo sonatas were especially important to him, along with Bartók's Sonata for Solo Violin. He described Ysaye as innovative, harmonically interesting, and very idiomatic. He also mentioned that the final movement of Bartók's sonata has an option to play quarter tones, and that he embraces microtonality in moderation. That was exactly the kind of information I needed. A major part of my goal is to write him something he will have fun playing and want to return to often. Thinking about lineage. As I began sketching ideas, I also found myself thinking about my own compositional lineage. One of my teachers, Cindy McTee, who helped inspire my approach to circle music, studied with Krzysztof Penderecki and lived with him in Poland for a time. That connection made me wonder if some of Penderecki's string writing, especially his use of extended techniques, might become part of the world of this piece. I shared some of those thoughts with the violinist to see if they aligned with what he was imagining. From there, I studied the pieces he mentioned, several of Penderecki's solo violin works, and Cindy's solo violin work dedicated to Penderecki, Capriccio per Krzysztof Penderecki. A few other works found their way into the research as well, but those pieces gave me a strong foundation. They gave my ear something to live with while the piece started forming in my head. Finding the first gesture. The first musical idea I settled on was a long portamento over a drone note. The line moves down into a unison, stays there briefly, and then continues downward until it comes to rest at a fifth. I also imagined a timbre change during that motion, with the bow moving between sol tasto and sol ponticello. That idea became the starting point for much of the material that followed. Before the first rehearsal for the SFCCO concert, where we were both performing, I was able to create a few more phrases. During intermission, I showed him what I had and asked for feedback. At that stage, the music was extremely rough. I had not fully settled on the pitch sets or even the exact notes in the phrases. It was still more conceptual than finished. But that was exactly why I wanted him to see it. He tried things out, seemed to like the direction, and also pointed out some things that might not work well. That kind of feedback is incredibly useful early in the process. It helps me avoid spending too much time developing ideas or techniques that either do not work well on the instrument or are not enjoyable for the performer. Refining the material. Over the next week, I continued writing. I added more melodic material and began introducing some of the techniques he had said he liked to play. I also started refining the pitch sets based on our first conversation, now that I had a better sense of what worked well and what did not. By the second rehearsal, I had much more material to show him. We tried several ideas, including one that he thought might not work, but still wanted to experiment with. I had no issue changing the pitches to something else, but the challenge seemed to intrigue him. A few days later, at the third rehearsal, he came back after spending more time with that passage. He had found a way to make it work and wanted to keep my original idea. I also included one technique he had never seen before, a double-stop Bartók pizzicato. Since he enjoys trying new things, that caught his attention in a good way. At that point, he seemed pleased with the overall direction of the piece and with how the different ideas were beginning to connect. That gave me the confidence to move from rough notes into a real draft, turning notes into a score. Once the musical world felt clear, I opened the new template I had created and began transferring the material into the score. This stage always changes the music. As I improved the notation for clarity, I also revised several passages so the ideas would connect more naturally. What begins as a set of notes and concepts starts becoming an actual piece once it has to live on the page. By the time the concert arrived, I had a good first draft complete. That moved the piece into the next phase of the process. Usually, this is the stage where I spend time playing through the piece myself, testing how the ideas connect physically and musically. Since I do not play violin, I am relying on the violinist for that part of the process. I gave him the first draft and asked him to spend time with it, to play through it, see how the sections connect, and let me know whether the piece needs more melodic lines, more rhythmic material, or anything else that would help him make really good music out of it. For now, I am waiting for his final feedback. In the meantime, I have completed the rest of the layout, added performance notes, and explained the extended techniques used in the piece. In a few weeks, I should have a clearer sense of whether this draft needs another round of revision or whether it is close to becoming part of the finished collection. Looking toward the bassoon concerto. With the violin piece now in the performer's hands, I have started moving toward the next major project, a bassoon concerto. This piece will be based on a Vivaldi bassoon concerto as a kind of formal guide. So I have been listening to a lot of Vivaldi and thinking about how that structure might shape a new work in my own language. That will be the big project for the summer, especially since the concert is planned for October. After several weeks of finishing layouts, refining solo pieces, and preparing for SFCCO, it feels good to be stepping into the next large-scale project.